Hello everyone. Thank you for coming. We had some problems last 24 hours, but hopefully, everyone who wanted get in tonight. So today we have a Figma meetup, and it's interesting that if you search for Figma in Google, it will show you some strange number of Japanese action figures, and people that are playing Death Stranding recognize this fella as well. So many exciting replies. Yeah. So thanks for Skyscanner for hosting us, having drinks, pizzas, and stuff. Nice Zoom, and I even have a new laptop from Lucian from Skyscanner. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. A projector as well. Like after tonight, we will have some, I think, bad reviews in various places after the whole registration was handled, but sorry for that. Move Agency helped us to bring Maria from Amsterdam today. So she works at Uber and will be showing some cool stuff that Uber is doing with Figma. Myself, my name is Sergiy. Who don't know me, I'm around various meetups in London on different things, mostly design tools related, and the next one will be about discovery in product design. It will be 5th of March, and it will be at kuva.com. We'll have various speakers abroad from company product board. We'll have speakers from Kuva. We'll have speakers from Bulb, and maybe some other places as well. So I will let you know, like we'll post on usual channels, and we'll try to make a registration less hassle than this time. I will, in terms of like speakers and stuff, I will show some small things, like a couple of plugins that are quite interesting, couple of cool things that community is doing in Figma. It will be like just 5 minutes or something, and then we'll hand this place to speakers. We'll have a couple of speakers, then a break, and then a couple speakers more. We'll have QA session after each of the speaker, and we'll have, I hope, some networking time when we will finish. Yeah, so despite I'm having a new nice laptop, the scrolling is working different directions, so will be fun. So I have like several plugins to showcase. So for people that are new to Figma and working in Sketch environment, so Figma like released in August the plugins ecosystem. People start building cool things. I will just showcase some of them that I think quite nice. So one called Text Edit, and basically what it is doing, you can replace like same, for example, text screens at once with like just one text editing. So imagine you have like 100 of screens and you are doing like maybe translation, or you have a new copy coming in Excel format or CSV or whatever, and suddenly you need to change the messaging and across all the screens. So you just type a screen and it's there, so you can just type it and change to something else. And as you can see, at the top and at the bottom, we just like change it straight away. So it's not just in two places. If it will have like the same text screen on multiple artboards, it will go and change them all. So it's quite handy and saves a lot of time. Other stuff is just released a couple of days ago, called Coda. So what it does, it connects Figma to like data lists. So something like Sketch is doing that with their data object. So idea is, if you run the plugin, so you can, yeah. So they have some example data, but you can put like, for example, URL of your lists, whether it's like images, text, screens, or whatever. You can click on any place in Figma. For example, this should be an image. Then you have like a list of, come on, URLs. Yeah, loading. Then names, for example. Oh, we can go to, sorry, it was wrong. People. Yeah. Yeah, so you can go like screen by screen and change that to something from your list. You can connect to your API and generate like designs. Come on, oh, demo time. I will blame Skyscanner Wi-Fi. Yeah, I just can't blame Figma. They pay me with t-shirts. Unfortunately, we don't have swag today. So more on that, like Figma was running a conference and was quite busy as well. So it's like perfect storm, and not kind of like you expect from like Fire Festival or something, but like for me, it was kind of like that. So yeah, believe me, this is working when Wi-Fi is perfect. So you have a list of things in your data list and you click and it generates stuff. For some reason, it's not working, but we'll just go to the next one. So what I quite enjoy in Figma, like story of my life, I'm very big fan of Figma, but I'm contracting right now and company using Sketch. So I'm just crying every day, and it's been a painful process. And one thing that I don't get, and I wrote them like a proposition, like make like so we start working with Sketch Cloud, so it's at least something for collaboration. But when you're doing product design, there are lots of stuff that you need to annotate, like create flows, like mark things and so on. So you can do that in Sketch, you can do that in Figma. The only problem, if you put that to Sketch Cloud or Zeppelin, those tools are breaking everything into individual artboards. So you can just like have a one like page like in Figma where you can just show everything you're thinking, annotate like different places, different states, what's going on like from backend perspective and so on. So people build thing called Annotate Kit. So it's basically a set of like various components that when you're like working on some product design and you need to connect screens, you need to annotate several places. So it works kind of like a sticky notes, and it's quite a good way to annotate your work if some other designers picking up your thing, or maybe you're working with engineers and PMs and they need to understand like what was the design thinking between like different solutions and so on. One great thing that really helps for those people that are doing like design ops and design systems, and they're the only one that are interested in the designs in Figma to be nice and perfect on components and textiles. Not everyone is fond of that. Like usually people just skipping that because they need to iterate fast. So what this plugin does, so imagine you have a person in your design team that created a very nice design system with all the textiles, colors and stuff, but for some reason maybe you just took the old file, or you're just iterating on something and creating something new. And so if you're familiar with code, so what has happened, it's just highlighting the stuff that, for example, missing textile. So something is just not in the design system. So you need to address that. And for example, the button or input. So things can have like missing fill style or the wrong border radius or stuff like that. So if something is not done on your symbols or like components or color fields that are across your company level, it will just lint all the stuff. So you can build that as a part of the process before handoff. Each designer needs to run this plugin, go through all the like frames, check the linting. If everything is all right, it's cool, it's coming to handoff. And the reason for that is because when we are working with developers, they need to see things based on tokens and components that are in your code base. And sometimes you can just skip that. It looks okay, like visually you can do usability testing, but engineers will have hard time when building things because things were not related to what's in the code. And this stuff is just doing heavy lifting. You don't need to cherry pick it. It will just showcase all the errors that are on the page. And when you start fixing them, it will just like checked, done. That's all. You can continue. People start like building like games in Figma. So there's like I don't know how, like there are of course some people that are older than me. Have you played games where you just like can select a couple of options and all the interface is kind of like text? So this kind of game like was done in some university. It's called Heroes and Dragons, and basically you're using prototype modes and you go in and there's like, for example, role selection, setting up cards and so on. So it's all, you know, it's just game built in Figma. Not that you have UI design done here. It's of course it's basic. It's just some logic stuff. You click here, it's going here. You have some choices, but it's, you know, quite nice way to learn tools. So like if you're learning new tool, for example, if you're new to Figma and you just want to learn it, I always encourage people not to do this in the middle of their working project, but maybe if you have side project or you want just to play with something, then it's okay to learn tool, because it's not putting any pressure on you to learn new tools while you need to ship something on a crazy level to hit your OKR or whatever. Noah Levin, who works at Figma, even start doing this interesting diagram in Figma. What are the responsibilities of designer and PM? It's quite nice, and I think like in every company there's lots of hot conversation who's responsible for what and how the design decision needs to be made. So it makes sense to look at this stuff as well. So yeah, like last week there was a Figma conference, and one lady went there and she used Figma to do nail design, and actually like it's, you know, it's a proper nail design as the end result as well. So it's quite an interesting way to learn tool. Just create some illustrations for your nails. About the conference itself, so it was a huge conference in San Francisco, so Figma invited like various speakers, and what they have done, they start putting all the like their presentations as slide decks inside Figma community pages. So like couple of them are available right now. One is interesting, advance your career as an IC. If you're the same person as me and don't like managing people, maybe this is like something that can be useful for you. Another quite interesting one, creating an illustration system that works for everyone. So it's also available in the Figma community, the whole, I mean, slide deck, and they will, they had like a live stream recording of the whole event, and they will cut the videos in the proper format and will publish them on their YouTube channel or something like that soon. Yeah, that's it from me. And now we are passing this place to Maria.
Yeah, okay, there we go, cool. Okay, so hi everyone. Again, my name is Maria, and I am a fairly recent addition to the design team at Uber. I actually joined in July as the first EMEA intern for Uber in Amsterdam, and then after 4 months, decided to stay, so I've been full-time since kind of mid-November. So I kind of am part of this thing called Global Studios, but what I personally work on is very related to Uber Money. And honestly, before I joined, I thought that payments at Uber is me paying for my ride. Shocker, when I went there, whole different world. And if you've been like kind of following Uber in general, there is a lot of efforts on financial product, financial technology, just in general moving money in and out. So that's kind of my world. But I'm not going to talk about money that much, at least for the first half. I'm going to talk about Figma. So Uber really loves Figma. I think we were one of the first like bigger players to like fully adopt Figma very early on. And as of right now, like 100% of our design files are on Figma. And very often I also see like even people on the first floor who are like law enforcement on Figma for some reason. I don't know what they do, but I like just passed because I had a meeting room and I was like, why do they have Figma? But yeah, apparently like a lot of people in the company are using Figma for various different things. We've also kept like a very close partnership with the Figma team. So we're always like beta testing, giving feedback. There were like people from Uber at Config. So yeah, all of the team I feel feels very passionate about Figma. So I wanted to kind of share the two main things that I think Figma really helps us make better designs, but also how sometimes those things kind of also, it's like a two-edged sword. But we'll get there. So this is basically an overview of most of the products that we have. As of right now, we have about, I forget the number, don't quote me on that, but like 13 apps or something like that, like shipped. So you can imagine those are like stuff coming from, you know, the Uber product that most of you are probably familiar with, to like copters, to like truck drivers, restaurant management. There's like very, very different use cases. So you'd imagine that for us, it's very, like for a company this scale with this much variety of product, it's super important to have like a centralized source of truth, and not only have like a centralized source of truth, but also have that be very easily shareable to other people and very easily, it's important for it to be easily updatable so people don't like go with like a design system from 2 years ago. So in our case, it's called Base. I'm not going to go too much into detail about how Base is built because, again, I work on money. I don't work on design systems. We have a whole separate team that does this, and they're doing an amazing job. But one cool thing that happened a couple of months ago, we used to have Base Web and Base Mobile. And as of September, October, I want to say, we only have one, which is just called One Base, very creatively. So our components right now, like most of them scale from like tiny little Android phone that like a driver in Brazil might use to like massive desktop screens that like a restaurant might use. One fun thing, if you are curious to like look at the components more in depth, a few days ago we actually open sourced the whole thing, so it's on the Figma community page. I checked against like my local file that I have. I think it's like 1-to-1, so literally everything that we use, including like the fun stuff like the 3D models, is there. So if someone's like interested in how we do states, like typography, color tokens, all of it is there and free for you to play with. So that's about design systems, or at least for now. The other thing is plugins. We have for now 9 published internal plugins, and I think we have like a few more. We have like people at Uber love plugins so much that we have a dedicated plugin squad of 2 design engineers in San Francisco. If someone was like watching the live streams from Figma and in general like following Lily, who you can see like on the Figma mirror and the map shot and the Uber garage, like she was giving a talk about that as well. But the cool thing is that apart from them two, there's other people, and there's people like engineers down there. There's like a researcher, I think like a copywriter. Like I've seen, again, various functions of design, not only like design engineers or engineers building plugins, which is really cool. And their kind of like motto is to find the gap, and like find the gap either between functions. So like, let's say the gap between an engineer and a designer and a PM, or the gap from base to a particular function, and that makes sense. But yeah, they've been kind of doing some really cool work, and I wanted to share a couple that I just thought were like really interesting. So there's two actually in this category, very similar to what you just saw, like linters. Good thing I actually have this one because this is for color tokens. So what recently happened is we used to have our color system used to be set at like very like standard like gray, 100, 200, 300, all that shebang. We moved to semantic color tokens. So now we separate in content, background, border, and primitives. So like first three, very self-explanatory. The fourth one is primarily used for illustration. So we don't really use it in any of the like product necessarily, the UI. So as you can imagine, we kind of can have, if we don't connect to our tokens and like the color styles, when an engineer sees black, there's like 6 color tokens that map to black, right? So like it might be like it might be UberX, and if that's like just black by accident, and you'd think that it's common sense that you don't put like a heading or like a label with like a token that's labeled like border. But it happens, and when it happens, that screws up a number of things. Like very vivid example is dark mode. The border, like our token for border in dark mode behaves differently than our content one. So like it's really nice. You just kind of, I'm going to do like a small demo. So you can do, there we go, color tokens. The idea is at some point that it actually knows when you're also misusing. For now, it's just like if you're misusing a primitive or if you've like not attached a color token. But I'm pretty sure there's like efforts to, yeah. So it says like not using any color token, not using, I think, yeah, misuse of primitive token. And I think this kind of, yeah, that brings you into, you can't see it, but it brings you into the deck that we have for color tokens. So like explaining, hey, you know, you shouldn't be using primitives for like a background selection. So this is pretty nice. And the other one, which is called like, it's here, where base detaches, very similar. If you like detach a button or if you detach something else, it's gonna like just kind of highlight it and go like, hey, you've detached this component. But the interesting thing about that one is, and I can't really like show it, but it actually mines data for designers, from designers, which I find really, really interesting. If I detach a button and if like 20 other people detach a button, that data, I'm not sure about the technicality, but like that data goes back to the design systems team. So like they come together and they're like, okay, we have like 100 people detaching the button. That either means that that component is not working well, or they're lacking a component which we haven't made. So that kind of like helps them prioritize which components to like fix, or like if there are any new components that need to be made. It's just like a nice like passive channel of information. Like I don't have to like submit like a ticket being like, hey, I have this product, this needs to happen, yada, 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 because it might be a one-off as well. So that one's super useful as well. These ones are a little bit more flashy because the linters, they're very geeky, but I still really like them. Garage and Mapshot, they're kind of like for generating mainly maps and 3D objects. So Mapshot, this was built by, where's Mapshot? There we go. Mapshot was built by one of the design directors. He was Driver. So he kind of built this. I'm not sure which, if it's like Mapbox or Google Maps or something, or might be our own maps, not exactly sure, but it's really cool because you can kind of pick your location. So we can go to like London. You can pick like, we have like 4 different custom map styles. You can like pick anything. We can keep it default. You can like pick your zoom level. You can also do it with like your trackpad. You can kind of like do if you want like labels for street, if you want roads, if you want shields, like full customization over how your map works. Even can go in perspective because I'm pretty sure drivers have it in perspective. You can even get like, if you're using it for actual UI mock, you can get a phone guide. And then one other cool thing is you can generate a route, and I'm pretty sure it's an actual like drivable route. It's not just like connect the dots. So you can kind of also like drag it on the canvas itself. Like I can put this here and it kind of changes, which is pretty cool. And then you can just go add map. And it takes a little bit of time, but okay. It should be, oh, maybe I need to be in a frame. Okay, I think that was my mistake. Okay, let's make another one. Come back. Okay, let's just put a generic route and then add map. Yeah, I think it needs to be in a frame for it to work. Yep, there you go. So it does that. And then the other one, I had a little bit of trouble with the other one earlier today. I hope it works now. It might be a bug. But MapShot, we basically, if you saw on, let me just scroll back, go away. If you go here, those 3D models, we used to like just have a few Figma assets, and that was it. If you needed any other perspective of that model, you had to go to that team. Like that's the problem with a big company. Like you can't just make it yourself, right? Someone owns this, and you have to like jump through like 50 loops to like get a different perspective of like a copter, let's say. So what this plugin does, hopefully it works. It basically gives you the freedom to make it however you want it to look like. So over garage. Okay, yeah, so we have like, we're gradually like adding more of them. Oh, okay, now it works nicely. So if you want like a copter, you can either, there's like a few like predefined ones, so you can do perspective or top, or you can do full custom, and you can control rotation and zoom. So you can literally, wait, let me just, yeah, you can even do it like on the canvas again. You can control it with the sliders. Pretty cool, because then like whatever you need it for, you just get it like that. Unless it's like one of the models that are not here, then problem, but we're working towards that. So yeah, if you want like that copter, you can just kind of add it in. It's a little bit small, but I can like put it on the map and then zoom in, and there you go. You have a little overcopter on there. So that's also really nice for like mocking up trips, because like honestly, one thing, especially being a designer in Amsterdam and not an HQ on SF, every single mock, and I'm not kidding you, every single mock I've seen is for San Francisco. And like, it's not a big deal, but at some point you're like, I want to mock for Amsterdam. I want to mock for London. Or even like sometimes you're mocking up something that's for like there's no pool in Amsterdam, right? So like if I'm mocking up that with the car for pool, well, it doesn't work. So this kind of gives us full freedom to like really create more realistic mocks, which is really nice. So with having like that big ass design system, having that many plugins, you'd think that like everything's peachy perfect, right? Flawless, yeah, not exactly. Because we have so many apps, and because the system is so generic to fit all those apps, that starts to create issues. So this is the list item. So these are like 6 of the list items we have. I think if I go into that file, we have about 50. And that's like without any customization, like 50 generic ones. So list item is actually like you can build 60–70% of the UI of Uber with this component, like almost everything you can build with it, including what I use, which is a payment method. So exactly what I thought that payments was pre-joining Uber, literally saying like which card I'm paying with. And you're probably thinking, this is really easy, like card, identifier, brand, whatever, some CTA, potential expiry date. There's like 5 or 6 properties of a payment method that you'll have. Yeah, but this is honestly, there's more than one answer, and these are components that I've like scouted from other design files, because again, in a bigger company, unfortunately, even though we're the money team and we're supposed to own all payments related things, it doesn't happen. And at some point, someone from like the rights team is gonna come in and they're gonna have to do something for payments. And because our design system didn't have rules for money, we were getting these things. And this, like these are like 4. I can spin at least another 16 based on those 4. And this was like actually happening. So at some point, this was a little bit before I joined, we have like technically one design systems person in our office who also does the iconography of Uber. He basically was like, we need a source of truth. So this is what we now have as a source of truth. This is how a payment method should look like, kind of. Because we also now have like about 20 more of these. So like if you want a message, if you want an expiry, there's like these fun cases when you have split payments that you're using vouchers and you're using a payment method and very, very complex things. But again, like the generic base system that we have doesn't really do the job. So this is base money. And I wouldn't call base money a design system just yet, purely because we don't have any code to go with that. For now, it's just kind of like a set of rules that is very much connected to the master base file, it's very much based, pun intended, on the original components. If something changes there, it's going to affect base money, and obviously it's going to affect our files as well. We are in the progress of getting specific money components, but that's going to obviously take quite some time. One thing that's fun about having this like nearly design system thing is that we can get a little bit more fun, and like we can have a little bit more experimentation, because obviously when we were talking with some of you about this a little bit earlier, auto layout, super fun. But again, if you have 13 apps that are like using your components and they push like one component with auto layout, we can't even imagine how many things that might break depending on like how it's implemented. So it's really, really hard to integrate it from the get-go and like the grand scheme of base. Whereas in our case, like the user group of base money is much smaller. Like there's still quite a bit of people pulling from it, but it's usually like one component, 2 max. So like it's kind of more forgivable, and we do still have problems. Like I had this the other day. I requested I was working on a component with our my design systems colleague. He did it for me, and I like pinged the engineer. I was like, hey, like just to let you know, this has changed a little bit. And then like he was like, oh, okay, great, like looks cool, fine. And then like an hour later, he's like, why did it change again? And I was like, what do you mean? And then I go into the file, and like something like my colleague changed something that like changed my component, and I was like, oh no, don't implement that. And I went to him and I was like, please revert, like please. But like again, we sit together, so it's like very easy to prevent that. At one point when we do have, you know, a more real sub-design system, probably we'll have to like settle on something. I don't know if it's going to be auto layout or not, but for now it is just nice to have it. And I've definitely seen improvement in consistency across the products. Like I had someone working on something called a commuter benefit. If you're from USA, you might know what this is, but you get like a MasterCard with some money, and you can use it on like a medium capacity vehicle, so like a Uber pool, but with like 6 people or something like that. But like they were already using the base money component, so I didn't have to have the whole conversation. It's like, we don't use like a text button, we don't use this. Like it was already done, so we could actually talk about the product itself. And yeah, that was kind of it. If you have any questions, I'm open to it. And if not, I'm also here until the rest of the evening. So if anyone wants to see any of the other plugins that were on there, feel free to come and I can show you. With copy, so we have one UX writer sitting with us in Amsterdam and one on the money team in SF. We try, honestly, I suck at copy. I'm gonna be very honest. There's some people on my team that are decent at copy. I suck, big time. So I just kind of try and involve him very early, and we have like this mutual understanding that if he's in my Figma file and has edit rights, he doesn't touch anything else. It's very like, you have to trust your teammates a lot. But there's also actually one of the, I haven't used it yet because it's very, very new. We have a copy doctor plugin. So I think what this does is if they click on the frame, again, I've not used this, so this is like completely me trying to make sense of it. I think it like gets my strings that I've like written for a placeholder copy, and it pulls them in a Google Doc or something, or vice versa. But it basically extracts the copy from Figma, links it to like a Google Doc or a Excel sheet, again, not sure, and then it can kind of like sync automatically. But for now, like I literally give him like edit access, and I'm like, Jamie, I trust you. I cannot write this, like full trust. I have trust that you're not gonna delete my files. He usually just makes, just in case, he usually copies the page. So like if I have like one master page of like flows, so I'll like be like, oh, M0 flows for this product. He just duplicates it, works on there. Then if we agree, I move my page to the archive, and then I put like copy locked in the name, and that's it. So base, for now, it is a code thing. It's not one. It's basically, we still have like web and mobile. I'm not too sure if there's like efforts to have one. I don't think it's gonna even work. Base money, it's interesting because we have web products, right? And we also have mobile products that use payments. And unfortunately, the web team is a little bit quicker than the mobile team. And in terms of implementation, they just have more manpower. So the web team is actually implementing things. And we've seen like having a couple of components like getting ready, like they're still in testing. We still haven't like really shipped something with them, so it's still in the process. There have been like kind of hiccups here and there, because let's say that my favorite payment method, in some cases, let's say when drivers try to get their earnings, you have speed and cost related to that, like it's called like flex pay and instant pay. So usually the component that the engineers built initially was like one line, or like they couldn't pull for the backend. It was something like that. And like then I came in and I was like, hey, so my product really has like a lot of context, so you need to be able to like see the trade-offs of like your different like disbursement methods. And they're like, oh, we didn't build it like that. So it's definitely a learning process of like also syncing like the money team of like whoever's working on what, and making sure that like we're talking and being like, okay, I'm using this component in a different way. It might not work, so we like save engineering some time. Yeah. Try and yell. I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so you showed that you've got loads of components within the base design system, which are really great. And I was just wondering, like, if you was a new person, new designer joining the team, what was the onboarding process for getting like, up to grips with like all the components and the plugins?
Yeah, so when I joined, thankfully there were no plugins yet, so I didn't have to deal with that. But the design system, honestly, because it was like my previous experience pre-Uber was another internship where we didn't really have a design system. So it was kind of a shock to the system. This is my first real job, also very honest about that. So I was kind of like, oh my God, that is a lot of components. But again, also we're very lucky that we have a design system person on site. What happened was basically for a few days, I was kind of like my first 2 or 3 days before I got my first project, I kind of like sat down with my intern mentor. And usually, even if you're like a full-time employee, you get like a buddy assigned to you for a few weeks. So that person was like basically sat me down and he was like, okay, here's our components, start dragging stuff, play around, like try and recreate some of the UI. And it's honestly, it's still like a learning curve, like especially when like some new component gets released, I'm like, what is this? I've never seen this. So like if it's some new product that I'm working on and I'm like, what is this? And I just go and ask, honestly, like I just ask, I swear I ask like the most questions in this team. Like I'll ask for everything and people are just very nice and they answer me. So yeah, but definitely took me like a month to get a grip of the whole thing.
Cool. We will have more questions later in networking time. And
yeah, I'm here, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have Blake next, and then we'll have a small break.
One thing that I don't know if everyone loves Zoom, but all right. There's a screen up here. Yeah.
Okay.
Talk amongst yourselves. deeply insightful title.
My voice not loud enough, sorry. I was trying to think of a deeply insightful title to start the talk. Couldn't think of one, so this is it. Right, okay. So the plan of the talk, there's gonna be 3 parts: quick intro to myself and where I work at Cover, not Couva, and how we share and the value of sharing and feedback and how you can design better stuff. An insightful demo, which I hope works. One thing that already doesn't work, there's supposed to be an emoji here and it doesn't work, so we're off to a great start. So my name is Blake. I'm the principal designer at Cover. I joined when there was just 6 of us. Can you notice 2 cursors on the screen? I can. So I joined when there was just 6 of us, and now we're coming up to 100. So what is Cover? Raise of hands if anyone's heard of Cover. That is way better than the last talk. Way better. And then we're in our own office, and no one knew what it was. So we're an insurance company, but not like an insurance company you may be used to. So we don't have a meerkat. We don't have a admiral walking around our office. We don't have a singing guy. No dog. No, we don't have. Yeah, we're a bit different. We're trying to basically build insurance that's very simple, something you actually understand, and how can we build insurance in a way that empowers your life. So at the moment, we only sell car insurance and travel insurance. You can insure a car for an hour and like 30 minutes. And also like travel insurance when you're on the runway, you can buy it that fast. And we're rolling out like the Netflix of insurance soon for car insurance. This is the design team. So unlike Skyscanner and Uber, we're maybe a little bit smaller. So we have 1 content designer leading themselves, user research leading themselves, pre-product designers, motion graphic design, and a marketing designer. What's a marketing designer? Who would know? So raise your hands if you use Sketch. Like lots of guts here, loads of guts, lots of guts. Raise your hands if you use Figma. Oh, it's unanimous. Everyone can use what they want. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So we use Figma at Cover. Wow, what a surprise. So what do I talk about? So about sharing earlier. So for us, radical transparency creates feedback. And how can you create radical transparency, get a lot of feedback to make your design better and the problems you solve more impactful and faster? You need to make feedback effortless as a team and as a company and within any parts of the kind of experience. So great design needs feedback. You need lots of feedback as a designer. And the more feedback you get, the better the design, the better the problems you solve, etc. So here's a very insightful graph. So the easier you can make giving feedback, the more feedback you get. Who would have known? So, whoop, whoop, very good. Okay, so I'm sure everyone's used to this sort of stuff. You have your design, you feed it back, you send it to your team. Can someone give me feedback on what I'm working on? It's something we experience as a team. We're only a small team at the moment, only like 100 people. So if we can solve this early on, I hear lots of people laughing. It's very rude. So you're usually used to waiting. You wait a lot of time and then eventually you may get it. So what is a quick way we could solve it as a small team? We use this little template app on Slack. Very cool. Write a little command. It generates a little thing, a feedback request that's public on our public channels. You describe the problem you're solving, the outcome you're looking for. It's important as designers to know what you want to achieve at least, and the link to the file. And then hurrah, you get lots more feedback. So a really quick, simple way that anyone can kind of do themselves. Anyone here build stuff on mobile? Raise your hands maybe again. Fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people have experience where it's hard. You also want to test the beta version of the app, whichever, and you want to feed it back to the team, but you have to take a screenshot, upload it to wherever, and hopefully someone sees it. So we use something called Instabug, cool little thing. Everyone that's a staff member at Cover just shakes their phone, and by default, because they have like config flags, all these really cool things, it'll trigger a feedback thing, and it goes directly to Slack public so everyone can see it. Unfortunately, you can't shake your laptop, that doesn't work, but phones is fine. And then in Figma, of course, you've got comments, although comments are a bit messy, but they're getting better, kind of. Please hurry up. So to get lots of feedback, you need to make things easy to find. Files easy to find, everything easy to find, really. And this is what we used to do. So we used Abstract, that's okay, and Sketch. And we used to break the file up into lots of little bits. And then we were like, well, it's only actually really for us as designers. No one else can find these. They have to install Sketch, etc. Although this is about a year ago we used to do this, and now you have Sketch Cloud, very fancy. So what do we do in Figma? So we keep it as simple as we can, so everyone in the company can see the files and give feedback really easy and have good insight into stuff we do at Cover. So we have 3 files. So team projects, 1 file that has every project in the company, screen library, which is just that, a live library of exactly what's in the product, what's in testing, and flows, a live living place, which pulls from the master components in the screen library and keeps it up to date and shows the live flows of all different parts of the product. So 3 files, and you can have a complete overview of the entire product. That's how it looks. There's 5 files here, but 1 is paused, and then you've got the App Store, so we have a place for the App Store images. So that's how it looks. We're getting closer to the demo, everyone. Cool. So what we're going to talk about, so some of the things I think a lot of us experience are as pain points in design is copy discrepancies, things changing in the content copy. For us, we're an insurance company, we're FCA regulated. If we say the wrong things, we can get a lot of trouble, stuff like that. And the design becoming eventually out of date. So sometimes little changes happen in the design system, stuff like that, and your Figma file can become out of date, little things like that. And engineers and designers speak a different language. Cool visual, oh, smart for this, visual cue of what I'm talking about. So like in design, normally you're affecting what's live, and it's quite uncommon for what's live to affect what you created before in design. An example, like for us, if we update the content or the copy, whichever, then our design file by that point is already out of date potentially, because it could be a quick change or whichever change, a different team, stuff like that. They may not have updated that file. So can you eventually have what's live in the product reflect exactly what's in design? And as time evolves, they are the same. So eventually, which is more aspirational, some of the stuff. So as you change the theming, assets, stuff like that, that they'll have both be the same. But how would you do that? Design systems. So do that again. Here we go. Quick demo. So I have 1 hand to do this with. It's going to be intense. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so I was like, I can do this. I got this. Sorry. So first thing, theming for our backend. So what does that mean? I don't know. So there's a very cool plugin called Thema, made by this guy, Thomas Lowry. We found it. We were like, let's try and use this. And what is the goal? So the goal is to pull from our design system to have one place where all the tokens and all that stuff come from. So we can design in Figma in dark mode and light mode whenever we want, flick between the two, design in dark mode, whichever you want. And here's how it looks. So as mentioned a few times before, you have things like design tokens. There's a piece of text that disappeared here, but yeah. Here's how they work. So there's semantic as well. So you've got, in light, you've got fill, action, background, surface, separator, and text. And then what they mean is like text on action, text on fill, text on highlight. And then the same for dark mode, of course. So here are your 2 themes, we have them set up as like 2 different library files. And then you use Thema, so it'll eventually look like this. So you've got dark and light. So with Thema, you can push it, you just, you push to our backend, and then it syncs, it goes to like a location, whichever URL. And now it means we are able to design implicitly. So we can design whichever color mode we want. So I think a common thing you could do is have 2 different files, maybe dark mode and light mode if you want, but we don't do that, no. You can design in either, it's up to you. So let's open Thema. Here we go. So I'll just group these. This is where the slow Wi-Fi comes into. So you can just select them, and I'll move that the way because and change it to dark. There you go. There's these components all in dark mode, or I can change them to light mode. Very nice. But because you've set up using the kind of semantic naming, all that sort of stuff, all the rationales implicit. You don't need to pick the colors. It's all there for you, and it's easy to adjust later as well. So what does that mean? When you're designing, you can just pick a screen. Be like, let's see if it looks right in dark mode. Oh, it does. It look pretty okay. And there you go. Cool. So that's Thema. Next thing. So what I was saying earlier is like, can we have live real content coming from our backend, and then have that in Figma itself? So rather than us open the files, and if another team changes content or whichever, it could be a possibility that what's in the real product is not reflective of what's in Figma. We make the wrong decisions and just essentially waste time, and it could be a worse customer experience. So we were going to build this plugin ourselves. We built quite a lot of it, and then this came out, and we're like, let's can that. Let's move on to the next thing. So here's how it looks. So it's called API JSON Sync. We have all of our content in GitHub. What's the benefits of this as in general using this kind of plugin? There doesn't need to be an App Store release. It works on every platform, and you don't need to be an engineer to do it. So we don't have to push an app update to change copy. If there's an issue on Android and iOS, we can just push the content change, goes to both. Well, so here's how it looks. So in the real app is on the left. So this is the real App Store kind of version. And on the right is Figma. We have a secret sort of button somewhere in the app that reveals all the content strings. So this is how they all look, all of them there. And then they're coming from, you can see that they're coming from, this one in particular is saying, it should say it's a live photo. Then in Figma, it's here, it shows a live photo. And if you open the, where is it? The plugin. Save, here we go. They're all here. So I can see all the stuff that's synced. So when you open the plugin or someone else opens it, they just tap sync, updates everything, and then you should be all good to go. The eventual goal for us is, the version we're building is to be able to make content changes in Figma and do it as a PR, someone accepts it, and it's all done. So we don't need to go to GitHub anymore, which would be sick. And one thing that's really cool with auto layout is now that our Figma file, well, with auto layout, things are more adaptive. That means that if the content changes, we don't need to like go around and push pixels because we're so much better than that. So we don't need to do that, as I'm sure everyone's seen auto layout. No, I'm in ours. Okay, so next thing, last thing, is getting measurable feedback. So I think in design, some things can be gut feel, but then you can also get people into the office, or you can kind of like set up, like build it, get it released, test it, measure it, and see if it works. But can you measure your design before you've released it, before you've built it, maybe before you've even shown your PM, so you look even smarter when you show the results. So we use something called Maze. They've just added the Figma integration after taking forever. We're like emailing them every week, like seriously, hurry up, please. And they did now. So why would you use it? So with Maze, you can iterate really quick because you can get more feedback faster. You can make improvements, loads of them before you even shown anyone, really, or put it to customers or built it. There's no friction, it syncs to Figma, it's very easy. And you can make faster, informed decisions. Not that this is always going to be perfect. It's always worth speaking to customers and getting customers in, all that sort of stuff. But this is definitely another tool in your toolkit. And you can source them through Maze. You can use your own users, your own team members, all that sort of stuff. But you can use them to like source people for you as well. It's really, really nicely done. So a little interactive demo. Hope everyone gets involved. So we're going to run a test together. Two different versions of the same home screen. This is the current home screen we have that's quite old, and we update, and there's a newer version. So if I ask the question, what would you tap to insure a car? That is the test we want to test. What do people do? They tap the right thing. In the one on the left, you got to tap the motor button, and this one you can tap motor, and you can tap insure a vehicle. So we want to find out whether that works. Who thinks number one will do better? Number two? It's unanimous. Fantastic. Cool. So let's set this up quickly. So if I jump over here, cool. So I'm in Maze now. So I'm in the home screen project, and I'm going to try, I'll set up just one of them, the no empty state one. So it's already got my Figma file that I added earlier. So I can just tap starting screen, which is this one. I want them to tap that, and that's it. That's my test. There's a window here. And then you tap start testing, and you can send a link out to people or invite people through Maze. And this is what you get. So we did this, like, I set this up just yesterday. And you get like all the results in like an hour, which is insane. So empty state one, here we go. So we got 13 people to test it. Usability score of 31. There were 60% misclick rate. They tapped the wrong thing. They took 14 seconds or so to do it. 50% succeeded, and 46 just like, were like, what the hell? I just left the test. They're like, I don't understand what's going on. And that's what we have in the actual app right now. That's not good, is it? And this is how it looks like visually. So people just, it's not good. It's definitely not good. And you can see where they're tapping and all that sort of stuff, like exactly how much time they spend, all that sort of thing, which is quite insightful. So number two, cool. So 10 people got tested it, usability score of 91. I don't know how they calculated it. They do explain it. I've not read it. Misclick rate of 25%, which is half of the previous one. 7 seconds duration, half of the previous. Average success, 100%. No one's left. No one's quit, which is good, I think. And that's all stuff you can do before you've even built it. Not that this is, you might find They may not be the perfect hypothesis or assumptions to create. Definitely best to eventually get things in front of customers, but it's definitely something. And you can do that all whilst designing at the same time. So you could be running this, working on something else, getting a ton of feedback and moving very quick. And that's for us as a pretty small team. We have to move quick and not waste time. It's tough for us. So overall, so 51% mistaps, 40% faster, 100% success rate versus 50, and that's that. Now I think there's a bug now where it won't let me tab to the next one, so I'll have to do this. Oof. So what does this all mean? So for us, tools don't make design better. For us, feedback and speaking to customers and getting results and all sorts of stuff makes design better. Any questions? Maze, M-A-Z-E. They've got the domain .domain, so maze.design. Sorry, not .domain. So it's confusing, doesn't it? Maze.design, yeah.
Just a quick question on the content sync thing that you had.
It's all over there.
Yeah, wherever it was. I don't know whether you were imagining an ideal world or whether you have this going at the moment to make changes in the Figma file and that gets updated in the product. It's like, how would that work for localization, like different languages?
Yeah, that's very, very fair. Something that we don't at the moment have to worry about just too much yet. But I think for localization, you could have, I think this is part of the UI. You could have a way that tests it, pushes it in, because if you can inject like the text eventually. Well, not in this current version of Figma, but I imagine very soon the plugin will be able to influence more like the inputting text. No, actually, it does do that. Sorry, it does do that. I'd imagine you could solve it with UI. So just you could change languages, also let us grow it. It'll be fine. We'll solve it together. Don't worry.
Yeah. So going back to what you said about feedback.
Yes. Cool.
So going back to what you said about feedback is what makes you guys great, and you get loads and loads of feedback. When does feedback become too much? Because if you getting loads of feedback from loads of different people, different sources, how do you then isolate which is important, which is actually needed, which isn't important, and how do you make a decision? Who do you filter? Who is that person that then makes that final call and says, right, we're going to go with this? Or
yeah, I think with feedback, it's definitely first thing you take ego out of the question, and the first thing you ask is what problem you're trying to solve that customers have, and then it's a case for the PM or whichever people within the team to figure out what if your goal is to release quick, what are the things that feedback you've received dictate that you may not hit that solve that problem, and then from there work your way down. They're nice to haves. We'll get to that later, but at the crux of it, there's the problem that you're trying to solve, and if the feedback you find is insightful that prevents that, then you solve that first. A few. I think the main thing is accessibility. So when anyone in the company joins, they get onboarded to Figma. They just they can just use on the web. They don't need to download the app, stuff like that. That in itself, the fact you don't need to download anything, and we don't really share screenshots anymore. We just share Figma files and links to stuff. There's much more accessibility that everyone can see it. The multiplayer stuff is very nice. If you do a video call with a few remote team members, we don't need to use Zoom. We can just have a call and just use Figma, and they can just follow our cursor, stuff like that. Yeah, so I think accessibility is very easy to use. There's no tools. Just the moment you have to install a tool, you've immediately negated like a massive portion of your company. That's just in terms of like feedback, transparency stuff, not just like it's faster. There's loads of cool stuff like that. There's loads of cool things, but this is a culture thing. It's much easier to use.
How do you put together your interactive prototypes when you want to user test? Do you still do it in the environments of Figma, or do you export it to somewhere else? I'm just curious.
Two types of testing. So if we're going to do something that's, for example, very simple usability stuff, you can do it completely fine with Figma and Maze. If we want to get customers in before we've built something, then we use Protopy. So we do that quite frequently. So you build it in Protopy, you can sync with Figma, it's very cool. and you can do all the sort of interactive stuff you want. We used to use Printable before, but that gets very messy. If you ever want, you only use it for yourself, not for the team. It's too complicated. Yeah, Protopy is very good.
If you will have more questions, let's leave it for networking time. Thank you. All right. Yeah, everything's set up, yeah? practice it out.
Oh, yeah, my personal laptop. Maybe my work one. Oh, yes. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, do you need any help? Yeah, logging in. Where's the keyboard? Upstairs. Keep my video on? Yeah,
Well, when you start to share your screen, probably that's not having your face.
We're more execution power, right? So if they went like the manager was like, okay, I know it's nothing like this. Swap him with the junior guy. Junior guy goes up like money. Starts like figuring something really fast. Whereas like staff guy goes in and he's like, okay, we're not sure that there's nothing about this. We want to continue being on the you let me say but I don't know what I don't think like I don't think we're gonna have
Oh, that's right. You know, I mean, it's after work, you know, drinks, and I'll be there too. We need to leave like it's 9 o'clock. Oh, we have to one more thing. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's start. Hello? Oh, cool. Oh, fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you so much, Sergey. So my name is Declan Talbert. I'm a UX designer at University of Arts London. And it's quite, yeah, whoop, whoop, there we go, yeah. It's quite rare to have like a UX design team at university, but it's slowly growing and it's an integral part of like helping to build design culture and to bring user-centered design practices to education. So my talk's going to be about scaling collaborative design culture. I think it's going to be interesting, but there's no demos, unfortunately, like the previous two speakers, but I'll try and make it really enjoyable. There we go. Cool, so how many people here are actually using the design system? Anyone put your hands up? All right, it's good, it's growing, I like that, fantastic. But like, how does your organization perceive a design system? Like, anyone here, like, want to say, like, do people see it as a kind of helpful thing for the organization? Yeah? Yeah? You see it helpful? That's fantastic. It should be, you know? If not, then why make one? Yeah, at UAL, like we first started off thinking that a design system is a single source of truth that helps to group all the elements and guidance together so that it can unify different type of teams, such as designers and developers, so on a unified vision. But we're kind of slowly changing this type of, I guess, view and trying to make it have more purpose. So I'll just give you a basic understanding of what a design system is. Like, maybe not everyone here might know what it is, but it's broken into certain parts such as pattern library, which you can have your brand, your components, your patterns and code. And then you have your tools, Figma, woo, yeah, Figma, fantastic. Yeah, there we go, fantastic. We've got a GitHub as well, great, developers love that. And we've got a storybook, so that's where we put all our live coded components up, so we can reuse them again. Guidance, usage guidance, how you can use components is very key, especially when you're working with a content team and they want to create pages with your components, and documentation to go with that as well. And sometimes research, like I looked at quite a lot of design systems. Research isn't really part of it, but I think it should be. So user personas and research repositories are very important. So my previous experience, I worked at the BBC before. I worked as part of the GEL team, so global experience language team, and they have a design system, which you know, BBC uses it, and at UAL, so we started to create our design system. And the things that I saw and other designers saw was that it helped to connect the designers with the developers so that we are on the same page, and the guidance and references for materials. So, but there's like some things that came up which I thought was like something that needed to be improved on, like continuous uptake for the design system. Yeah, you can start off using the design system, but then again, designers, they want to be free and kind of have freedom to create stuff. Onboarding issues. If you've got a big, large design system, how can you get people onboarded in a efficient and continuous ongoing process? And what wider internal awareness and adaptation. So like, yeah, like designers and developers may know about the design system, but how about everyone else? You know, your finance people, your business analysts, and so on. So the opportunities I saw was like, maybe we can scale beyond the design and development team and build beyond the design system. So I asked myself a question, can a design system become more than a panel library and guides? Because it should be, really, if you want it to live longer. So I'm going to bring up a quote from, yeah, the man himself, you know, Dylan Field, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there you go. Like, if you can hear us all the way from America. So I like what he wrote. He said that, like, you know, designers are now kind of welcoming non-designers. And we're co-editing with these team members as well. And we're sharing what we do with them. So kind of building a community. And that's very key. As designers, we're communicators, right? And we're setting a new standard for the next generation. So you want the designers who are learning how to design or to code to bring this kind of community like feeling to the future. So like the thing that I picked out from his quote is that non-designers. So that's something that's very key. So again, how might we onboard and include the rest of the organization to be open and collaborative together? That's something that's very important. So it's not as easy as just, hey, give you Figma or, you know, start designing. It's much more than that. So training opportunities could be that entry point for non-designers, you know, like helping them understand and how to design and the methodology processes and user-centered design approaches too, so they can better design, you know, become part of the design process. So I just want to give you a kind of like background of University of Arts London. So we're one university based in London. We're split up into 6 colleges. They're like brothers and sisters, always fighting with each other. CSM, St. St. Martin's, is like the biggest child there that everyone knows of. And we've got like 20+ departments like throughout all of the colleges, and again, they're fighting across with each other. We've got like websites and services, like 100+ of them. Like, it's insane, right? You're thinking like a university just has one website. It's not true, because course leaders are creating their own websites to promote their courses. Researchers are creating their own websites to promote their research. And like, we've got international websites too, like all around the world. And because recruiters want to like localize the content for that type of particular market. So it's all over the place. And then again, we only have like 5 developers and 2 UX designers. So I just want to emphasize the developers and the UX designers. So we're part of the digital team. We're centralized at Holborn, and we're essentially looking after 10 main products, but also providing assistance to the rest of the departments around the university. And that's a bit crazy. So our main user base are the students, obviously. If we didn't have students, we wouldn't be a university, we wouldn't be in business, right? But then it's the staff members. And after that, we've got the UX team. It's like, we're really tiny. So how can we actually build a platform so that we can actually bring the UX to everyone else? And we thought of the educational development platform. So we want to establish the platform that can allow anyone from any background to learn and utilize design methodologies and practices for their everyday needs. So a part of this educational development program, we developed a UX advocate program. And this program allows to provide workshops and hands-on teaching opportunities for the staff members to get involved with using the design system, to using different methodologies such as creating user journey flows and so on, which I'll get into more detail. And then job shadowing. So they, like any other staff member, can actually come with us and work side by side with us and get hands-on with making some designs, which we're probably going to be using, which is really good. So in a way, we're kind of expanding on the design system and creating a design ecosystem, something which helps to strengthen the design system and make it much more scalable across the whole organization instead of just being confined to a design and development team. So the UX program is split up into 3 sections, which is introduction and foundation of UX, visual design and prototyping, and user research and analysis. So for the introduction and foundation to UX, we have 3 key workshops that we have under this section. It's our introduction crash course, which is introducing the fundamentals of user-centered design, because everyone in an organization is essentially working for a user, right? You know, finance is working for the staff members. You're not going to get paid. You know, you might come up with some issues. So how can we provide them with that knowledge of providing better user experience, processes, user personas, bring in users like frustrations and key focus points to the forefront and always be there, as well as accessibility with UX. As we're public, we have to abide by the rules of being AA compliant by the end of this year. It's very important, so we need to kind of upskill our staff members on that. The next one is visual design and prototyping, which is really fun. This is where the staff members can get a real hands-on approach with making user journey maps, information architecture, also prototyping as well. So we get them to get involved with using Figma and actually using the components and creating designs. And this is a fantastic thing to do because it allows us to find out what kind of setup we created is actually transferable to other people who are non-designers, because from there you can really test if your design system is actually going to work. Because if you do give it make it open source and for any designer to use, how do you think they are going to use it if you just use it and your internal team know how to use it? But if you put it onto Figma community, how would you know that it's going to be utilized in the best way? So it's good to have like outsiders coming in and actually getting hands-on with it. And the last part is user research and analysis. So how can the staff members quantify the feedback that they get from the users? How can they kind of get this data so that they can actually find the areas they need to improve on or find the areas that they're doing well on? So allowing our staff members to actually get hands-on approach of being facilitators and note-takers for guerrilla testing and lab testing, and also analyzing that findings, the insights that they gain from those 2 testing sessions. And what I would like to highlight is that we have so many departments, but each department will actually hire contractors, designers, and developers. So they're making websites and they're making applications. But if we give them these foundations, they at least can go out and be confident to communicate with these contractors so that they can say, oh, we have this design system, we have these guidelines in place, and they can say, oh, what you produce is actually in line with our brand and our actual user experience centered approach. So here's a list of the type of people that participated in the UX advocate program. So we've got business analysts, digital content officers, operation administrators, project managers, and much more, which is really good because it means that everyone can actually be involved. And right now, it's much easier to get involved in design. You can go online, you can take on like short courses. So providing that opportunity for these people from different backgrounds to get into the UX Advocate program is a really good opportunity for them. Like what one of our colleagues actually stated is that they're able to get involved with the projects and to get hands-on experience, and they can actually see the bigger picture of of how this project that they're working on will have a bigger impact on the organization. And that makes them feel like they're part of an organization and part of a team and not being seen as an outsider. So by doing the UX advocacy program, we're in a sense kind of growing the team. We're making people feel empowered, making people feel like they are part of something that is big and something that is going to have a big impact on the users that they're actually serving, which are the students. So the challenges that we face by actually doing this educational development platform is that time and effort is one of the things that kind of made the development quite difficult in terms of we have to write up the whole curriculum, being able to I guess set up all of the materials, and then buy-in from stakeholders. So convincing that managers and departments that this is a really good thing to allow the colleagues to invest in, so that it will actually feed into better performance for the department and keeping participants engaged. So even though they're taking on a workshop, they might not carry on with like the stuff that they learn and implement it into the everyday work. So for the next steps, we're kind of further developing the advocate program. We're taking feedback, which is very key, which we do for our users. But we also need to think about our staff members at the same time. So how can we improve on what we're providing? And also doing the job shadowing for all our staff members, so they can actually work alongside with us, and they can bring along their projects, and they can create solutions with a user-centered design approach. And I think these are the three key takeaways that I would like to present to everyone here today, is that creating a design system is really good, but creating a design ecosystem is something that could help scale your design system beyond your design team or your development team throughout the whole organization. And that will give you much more buying power from, I guess, board members or other department leaders. And being open to anyone who shows interest into the profession that you're in, like designing or developing, providing them with help at any time that spare time you have, and making space for people who are outside the design circle to get involved is very key. And that's what I think is important as designers. We're there to help connect people, and like being stuck in our own circles is not really going to help that. So trying to find a way to break out and bring people in is very key for what we do as designers. And that's it. Thank you very much. Bunny.
Thank you. So how many websites are you currently working on? It's not 100, I assume.
It's not exactly 100. So we work on like 10 main products. We've got the main website, got Portfolio, which is like our university Behance, My UI app, and many more. But we get new websites coming in all the time, every month. And we can't put in work for each website with such a small team. So we need to find a way to scale that up. So it's something that is a challenge, but I think with this type of process in place, that we can help to kind of like at least provide, I guess, help to those people who are dealing with those websites to make it much better. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have some last demo Figma stuff.
Computer. Cool. So you so resize them, and then you to create new rows, just select the row, duplicate it, and then you can start. You can add as many as you want. You know, like, and the cool thing is that you can go to the component and you can change the color of the text and any of the and everything's updated. So yeah, it took me quite a while to figure it out, but the thing that it falls flat on is when you want to change the style of the borders, because one of the things that you find when working with Figma is there's like little quirks, especially with auto layout. You start to realize that there's some things that don't necessarily work the way you might expect them. One of them is the way that the stretch works. So you can see in this row, each of these cells is adjusted to the height of the content, but you can't stretch the height of the content, so you're limited to what the design is. And then, oops, zoom. There's some other cool things you can do. You can create like a redlining tool. So this is one I created where you can adjust, you can create components that stretch in different ways. So if you had a UI component and you want to like draw the annotation away from the UI, you can stretch that. There's various different tools in there. So there's preset ratios. So if you want to draw a grid of videos, for example, and you want them to be a video ratio, you can just copy the asset and stretch it to kind of use it as a rough guide. And then there's some other cool things you can do. If you want to, if you design icons, you want to preview your icon at different sizes. One of the cool things that gets unnoticed is the scale tool. What you can do is you can create your icon at the size that you would normally design it. And instead of resizing it using the normal cursor tool, if you resize it using the scale tool, any changes that you make inside the editor preview will reflect inside there, but they'll use the scale tool to change them. So like, for example, if you use the border radius, now if you were to normally change that using the cursor, then the border radius would stay the same. But if you use the scale tool, no matter, even if you change it without using the scale tool, it will reflect that and it will scale up from, say, 2 pixels to 4 pixels. So for that reason, it's really good to use the scale option. And inside it, you've got different grids to help you align an icon. So you can have, if you've got like a tall icon, you've got a tall box. To normalize icon sizes, circles are generally bigger than square icons. So there's an outline for circles. And once you're finished with it, you can pop that into your icon library. So that's really it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, just to wrap up, if you have bottles, plates from pizza or stuff like that, please clean this up. They're like some trash. And I guess like some pizza left there in the networking area. Oh, yeah, and As usual, like there's at the end of our meetups, there's like some hiring announcements. If someone is hiring or someone is looking for a job, we can pass a mic and we'll start from Skyscanner. Okay.
Skyscanner is hiring for senior and principal level. So if you want to apply, you can contact Maya over there, or you can contact me on LinkedIn. It's Lucian Radu. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else is hiring or looking for a job? Okay, maybe there's a connection. You can. Cool. Thank you.